Alrighty guys, what's going on? It's Phil here. It's time to talk about the state of the AEW World Championship. Now we all know what is currently happening with the AEW World Championship as of right now. It is being held hostage by one Jon Moxley of the Death Riders. We all know that the Death Riders have been running roughshod all over AEW ever since Jon Moxley's reign got started, because Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders are trying to fulfill the mission that Jon Moxley set forth. Jon Moxley wants a new AEW. He wants an AEW where people are just not phoning it in. He wants an AEW that everybody can thrive in, and he's doing it in a way that not many people are really kind of enjoying as of right now. And though we have seen people like an Orange Cassidy try to step up to the Death Riders and really trying to save AEW, at the end of the day, we have seen that the Death Riders are just too big to go up against, and everybody is trying to figure out what is going to be the thing that ends the Death Riders once and for all. So the entire point of me making this video is going through the rest of Jon Moxley's title reign, as I do not personally believe that this is going to be ending anytime soon when it comes down to the Death Riders. And let's just talk about who could be the one that dethrones Jon Moxley as the AEW World Champion. When it comes down to what Jon Moxley has already done as AEW World Champion, we've seen Jon Moxley defeat Bryan Danielson and retire him from full-time in-ring competition at AEW Wrestle Dream. Then we saw Orange Cassidy try to step up into the face of Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders to ultimately save AEW, but failed in the process in his matchup for the World Championship at Full Gear. And then we saw a fatal four-way where Orange Cassidy, Switchblade Jay White, and Hangman Adam Page all tried to step up to save AEW, but failed in the process once again as Jon Moxley walked out of that fatal four-way with the World Championship. And keep in mind, when it comes down to the recording of this video, I am recording this just before the matchup that he is going to be having with Powerhouse Hobbs at AEW Maximum Carnage this coming Wednesday on Dynamite. We all know that Powerhouse Hobbs won the Casino Gauntlet match last week on AEW Dynamite, so I'm filming it right before there. So I'm just going to go off the assumption that Jon Moxley will retain the AEW World Championship against Powerhouse Hobbs this coming Wednesday on Dynamite at Maximum Carnage. But what is going to be happening after the matchup with Powerhouse Hobbs? Well, that's what I'm here to do. So let's get right into it. So, when it comes down to the ending of AEW World's End, we know that the Rated R superstar Adam Copeland returned to AEW, and he has set his sights on Jon Moxley and that AEW World Championship. But when it comes down to when he is ultimately going to be getting that shot at the AEW World Championship, I don't believe that's going to be happening until AEW Revolution. So we're going to put Adam Copeland to the side for now. The first event I want to talk to you guys about is AEW Grand Slam Australia. We all know that AEW Grand Slam Australia takes place in the middle of February, and we got to figure out who is going to be facing Jon Moxley in Australia for that AEW World Championship. Not only do I believe that this is going to be the person to do it, but I do believe that this is the perfect place to have a one-on-one matchup between Jon Moxley and Switchblade Jay White. A perfect opportunity to have that singles matchup between Switchblade Jay White and Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship, as you can have Switchblade Jay White just be fed up, and you can have him say that he is ultimately going to get that one-on-one matchup with Jon Moxley in the AEW World Championship, so he has no chance of getting screwed out of the AEW World Championship once again. And you can do the Bang Bang Gang and the Death Riders all in some sort of brand warfare type of deal when it comes down to the factions to ultimately get to the matchup between Jon Moxley and Switchblade Jay White. But in all reality, we all know that Jon Moxley would go on to defeat Jay White for the AEW World Championship, and the title would be retained at Grand Slam Australia. Then on the Dynamite, after AEW Grand Slam Australia, we see the Rated R superstar reemerge on AEW programming once again, calling out Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders, saying that he is done, waiting his turn. He is done with, Jon Moxley running away at every single turn imaginable. He wants that AEW World Championship matchup at AEW Revolution, and he ultimately gets it. So throughout this build-up between Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland is slowly learning how the Death Riders are operating. So when it comes down to this matchup, he ups the ante a little bit and challenges Jon Moxley to a steel cage match for the AEW World Championship. That way, the Death Riders have nothing to be involved in, and ultimately, it's just going to be one-on-one with those two in the center of the ring, surrounded by a steel cage to see who is really going to be the AEW World Champion. That doesn't matter though, as Jon Moxley will retain the AEW World Championship inside that steel cage match at Revolution. After AEW Revolution is all said and done and Jon Moxley defeats Adam Copeland for the AEW World Championship, Jon Moxley's mission is still very much clear as he is now going to go after some heavy hitters in the AEW locker room. So at AEW Dynasty, we are going to be seeing a triple threat matchup between Jon Moxley, Hangman Adam Page, and Swerve Strickland. Now, we all know the storied history between Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland, but you can really make the storyline really be about how even though that they absolutely despise each other, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page have to work together to try to ultimately save AEW from Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, but because of their storied history, at the end of the day, they really do not care for each other, and that cost AEW in the end, as Jon Moxley would be ultimately defeating Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland and retain the AEW World Championship once again in that triple threat match at Dynasty. The next event is, of course, AEW Double or Nothing, and throughout this entire build-up, we are not going to be seeing an AEW World Championship title defense as Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders are continuing to run roughshod all over AEW, which prompts the return of Kenny Omega. Now, Kenny Omega has already, returned to AEW programming when he defeated Gabe Kidd at AEW Wrestle Dynasty. But throughout this entire build-up from that point on, we are seeing the reconnection and the reformation of the Elite, as now Kenny Omega is back into the fold with the Young Bucks, and we are going to be seeing anarchy in the arena at AEW Double or Nothing between the Death Riders and the Elite. And who is the fourth man when it comes down to anarchy in the arena on the Elite side? It is none other than Hangman Adam Page, because even though Hangman has had his issues with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, he knows that he has to work together with these three guys because AEW's life is depending on it. So Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, and the Young Bucks take on Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta in Anarchy in the Arena at AEW Double or Nothing. And to up the ante a little bit, why don't we put the EVP roles on the line? If they lose, then they are no longer EVPs of AEW. Just something to keep in mind there. And even though the Elite seem like they are on the exact same page and they are ultimately going to be saving AEW from the Death Riders, it falls short, as the Death Riders ultimately defeat the Elite and vanquish them as EVPs once and for all in AEW, as now they are going to be taking control of AEW from here on out. They defeat the Elite in Anarchy in the Arena at Double or Nothing. We're heading into Forbidden Door now, and it looks like Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders are just completely unstoppable. Jon Moxley has defeated every single challenger that has come to the defense of AEW, and now that they control AEW because of the defeat of the Elite inside Anarchy in the Arena, it seems like nobody's going to be able to stop them until Jon Moxley hears the music of one Will Ospreay. Now, throughout this entire build-up between Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay is really trying to hammer home the fact that he is ultimately going to be one of the final chances to save AEW once and for all from the Death Riders, because even though he feels that everybody else has really tried to step up in the face of AEW, he is on another level, and he is going to be the one to finally dethrone Jon Moxley of the AEW World Championship. Now, even though Will Ospreay could really be the one to do it, it ultimately falls short in the end as Jon Moxley defeats Will Ospreay for the AEW World Championship, and the beatdown is on. Jon Moxley and the rest of the Death Riders are putting the boots to Will Ospreay until finally we see the emergence of Darby Allin. Darby Allin is back. He saves Will Ospreay from the Death Riders once and for all, and he is now back into the fold of AEW after successfully climbing Mount Everest. And Darby Allin and Will Ospreay are the ones to stand tall at the end of AEW Forbidden Door. Now, of course, this ultimately leads to the Blood and Guts match for AEW, as it will be Team AEW versus the Death Riders inside the Blood and Guts structure. So who is stepping up for Team AEW? It's 4 major challengers from Jon Moxley's world title run that ultimately came very close to defeating Jon Moxley for that AEW World Championship. So we are going to be seeing Adam Copeland, Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, and Kenny Omega all try to fight for AEW, as they are going to be stepping inside Blood and Guts versus the Death Riders. Now, throughout the build heading into Blood and Guts, we know that Blood and Guts is going to be 5-on-5, but who is ultimately going to be the 5th man for the Death Riders? It's going to be the new member of the Death Riders in one, Jack Perry. Jon Moxley has enlisted Jack Perry to be a full member of the Death Riders because they've always had that sort of respect for each other. So Jack Perry is now a full member of the Death Riders, stepping inside Blood and Guts with his new brothers. Now, the 5th man for Team AEW is very easy to understand, and it is going to be one Darby Allin. Darby Allin stood tall at the end of Forbidden Door, and he wants not only just the AEW World Championship, but he wants to save AEW from the Death Riders and Jon Moxley once and for all, so he is joining Team AEW inside Blood and Guts. And finally, after Death Rider domination, we have seen the Death Riders lose, finally, once and for all, as Team AEW stands tall at the end of Blood and Guts. But that's not it for Jon Moxley and his AEW World title run. Because at AEW All In Texas, we are going to be seeing the matchup that everybody wants to see. Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin for the AEW World Championship, and this match is pure chaos. And I'm thinking the type of chaos that we saw back at WrestleMania 40 for the undisputed WWE Championship, but more chaotic, as we are going to be seeing the Death Riders and former challengers of Jon Moxley try to help Darby Allin win the AEW World Championship and save AEW once and for all. And the sad part is, none of it's working. It looks like Jon Moxley is ultimately going to retain the World Championship once again and continue the stranglehold that he has over AEW until the lights go out and the Icon reemerges in AEW. Sting returns to help Darby Allin. We see a Scorpion Death Drop from Sting into a Coffin Drop from Darby Allin, and that ultimately vanquishes Jon Moxley once and for all, and Darby Allin is crowned the new AEW World Champion. And now that Darby Allin is now the new AEW World Champion, the entire locker room empties as they hoist him on their shoulders, and AEW is saved once and for all by the man that did not care about contracts, did not care about the money. He just loved AEW for what it is, and that's how the show goes off the air. That's the state of the AEW World Championship. That's what I ultimately hope happens for the rest of Jon Moxley and the AEW World Championship run he is on. I truly do believe that Darby Allin is the guy to dethrone Jon Moxley and become the new AEW World Champion. But like I said, throughout this entire course of this video, it's not ending anytime soon. I really do think that All In Texas is the place to do it in, and I hope it really does happen. If you guys like this video, make sure you guys hit that like button on your way out, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for all notifications. That way you guys never miss another upload right here on the YouTube channel. This is the first real long-form video for 2025, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.